Guitar people, got my semi-hollow body out today. This is my ES-339. It's a very old looking guitar, but actually this is from 2008. That was the first year that they produced these. This is a semi-hollow body guitar, which means that if you can see the F-holes in the body here, that is how they used to make the archtop acoustic guitars, but this has a thin body, and what they've done is they've run a block of wood through the center of the body to make the top of this more rigid and deal with feedback. Feedback happens when the mounting surface that the pickups are on, as you would have happen if you put pickups into an acoustic guitar, can vibrate freely and you put it near a loud amplifier. What that does, it creates this really nasty kind of a screeching, howling sound, and I'll try and demonstrate that for you real quick here. My fingers are on the strings, so they can't vibrate on their own. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn up the guitar here, or the amplifier. Now, as you can see, you didn't get too much feedback there. I had it on a nice low gain setting, and that's what this guitar was designed for. It was designed for playing on loud stages in the late 50s and early 60s, and it was meant to deal with that feedback problem. If you've ever heard somebody stand too close to a microphone, you know what that sound is. Now, when I switch it over to a high gain setting, which is more reminiscent of today's music, see that it doesn't handle that being close to the amplifier when it gets turned up as well. What will often happen is you'll get this very screechy, ear-piercing kind of a sound, and the center block deals with that by making the center of the body that the pickups are mounted to a much more rigid surface than it would be if it was just left completely hollow. It's not as good as having a actual solid body guitar, but it's a good compromise for dealing with the feedback and still keeping the guitar looking a lot more traditional, as was popular at the time. I've said this before, and basically guitar players tend to be very traditional, and the amplifiers that we use still run vacuum tubes in them. Guitar players in the 50s and 60s did not want something new and outlandish and out there. They wanted something they felt comfortable with, which is why designs like the Flying V and the Explorer utterly failed. They were just too radical looking, even though they were basically constructed the same way. This guitar was made in 2008 because people love the ES-335, which is invented back in 1957. And looks like this, but they didn't like the size of it. It tends to be about that much bigger, and they wanted a smaller guitar, something that came in a more manageable package that still had all the basic features of the ES-335. So what they did is they shrunk the body down to about the size of a Les Paul, and you end up with this. Now, they had made one attempt to do that before through the custom shop called the CS-336. The CS-336 had a maple top just like this guitar does, but the back of it was made out of mahogany, and it was carved out of a single piece like you would typically have on really any other solid body like a Les Paul or something like that. This guitar, they chose to make the sides and the back out of the same poplar maple laminate that they made the top out of that they used on all the ES-335s. And the control layout, the general appearance, everything was kept very similar to what you would see in an ES-335. And if you're not familiar with that, just think Chuck Berry, you know, it's that kind of a guitar. This guitar was available exclusively through a company called Musician's Friend. And Musician's Friend is an online retailer, and if you go to Gibson and you want enough of something, they will make something to your specifications. So that's what they kind of ended up with, and that's the only place you could get one of these back in 2008. Well, in 2008, the price on these was about $1,800, and I saw that and I thought to myself, a custom shop guitar, because that's where they made these, for under $2,000, I've got to try this out and see if I like it. At the time, if you wanted any other custom shop model, you're going to be paying at least $5,000, and that is for something very, very simple, one pickup kind of a thing that you would maybe want to pay $600 for from the regular USA lineup at the time. So I decided to try this out. It had all the nice features. It wasn't as I thought of it at the time, a dumbed down guitar where they took all the nice features off. It has, as you can see, a fully bound neck and body, bound front and back, a nice set of pickups in it, which are 57 Classics, both of them. Typically, when you see a set of 57 Classics on a newer guitar, you'll see a 57 Classic in the neck position and a 57 Classic Plus, which is a little hotter in the bridge position. These are both 57 Classics. It has a vintage ABR1 style nickel-plated bridge. The ABR1 style is the original Tune-O-Matic bridge. It doesn't have what do you call them, inserts that it threads into in the body. So unfortunately, over time, these threaded posts are just digging into the wood of the body, and they can loosen up over time, which may need a repair. But vintage purists like it better for some reason. It also has less travel than a modern bridge, so it's not quite as adjustable. I've gone and replaced the stop bar tailpiece with a Bigsby tremolo unit mounted to a Vibramate plate, and if you can see there's a little bit of a gap between the bottom of the plate and the top of the body, because I couldn't use a full-size ES-335 mounting plate for this because the guitar is smaller, and since the top of the body is not flat, it's an arched top, it doesn't rest in full contact against the body. That has led to some tuning stability problems for me, but I have found that if I spend a lot of time really stretching the strings out when I change them, it helps out with that quite a bit. The other features of this guitar, it has your typical Gibson 4-knob control knob, 2 volumes, 2 tones, 1 for each pickup, and a 3-way toggle to select between pickups. The scale length is your normal 24 3/4 inch that you would have on a Gibson. The fretboard is made out of rosewood, since this is a pre-raid guitar. And the neck is made out of a single piece of mahogany that's been carved to the right shape. The neck profile is something that they called the 3060 profile at the time. Typically, Gibson guitars will have what they refer to as a 50s neck or a 60s neck. The 50s neck is usually thicker. The 60s neck is usually thinner. The thinner necks are usually quite faster to play in a lot of situations, but what they chose to do with this one is they offered it with a 50s neck, or they offered it with a 3060 neck. And the 3060 neck is that thin 60s neck profile that's been beefed up by adding 0.030 inches to the overall profile all the way down, but keeping the same taper. It ends up being a very comfortable neck that's very easy to play. As a matter of fact, when I first got this guitar and took it out of the packaging, the thing that I noticed right away was the guitar, kind of in my own words, was playing itself. It was very, very effortless to play, and notes were just kind of leaping out of the guitar without really any conscious thought or plan on my part. This would have to be in the top 3 of my guitars that are the easiest to play. And that's saying quite a bit, given how much tweaking and setup and things like that I've done to the other guitars. This guitar is still effectively the way that it came from the factory. You know, aside from 8 years of climate cycles, you know, winter, summer changes and things like that, I really have not made very many adjustments to this guitar aside from adding this Bigsby unit on there, which really, to be honest, it probably did lower the string tension a little bit, but it didn't really affect things like action relief or string height or anything like that to any noticeable degree. It's a very, very comfortable, fun guitar to play, and honestly, if it handled the high gain feedback a little bit better, I would probably play it more often because it is such a sweet sounding, sweet playing guitar. Unfortunately, since it is designed with that old 50s kind of a design philosophy in mind, even though it's a 2008 guitar, it sounds fantastic for lower gain styles of music and and things like that. But once you start adding really a lot of gain to it, it's fine for playing in a room at a reasonable low volume. But once you start really cranking this thing up, it really wails, and I don't mean that in a good way. It does tend to howl quite a bit. You can still buy ES-339s today. They make, I forget what they call them, I believe they're like studio versions or satin versions and things like that, where they have a rougher finish. They're not quite as refined. They tend to be around what I paid for this one, or you can pay more and you can get premium versions with flame top, gold hardware, that sort of thing. This basic, I'll call it a standard model, I believe today doesn't go for $1,800. I believe it goes for somewhere in the $2,500 to $3,000 range. So partly for that reason, I don't think I'll ever get rid of this one, because if I ever want to replace it, I don't want to pay that much more for something that I already had. And although it would be nice to have a flame maple top, this guitar is fine just the way it is. I don't feel any need to replace it or really upgrade it, aside from experimenting with putting a tremolo on it to see, if I want to do any of that kind of stuff with it. It is just simply a fantastic guitar, and I'm glad I bought it when I did. It's far too expensive these days for me to experiment with, and at the time what it was it was a way for me to get one of these semi-hollow guitars without paying the $2,900 or $3,000 that an ES-335 cost at the time. Also at that time I was not sure that, I should probably get something more acoustic, and I wasn't ready to actually buy an acoustic guitar, so I thought this would be a good halfway point. Now, as it turns out, I knew nothing back then. This doesn't sound anything like an acoustic guitar is going to sound, but that was kind of my thought process at the time, and even though it was wrong, I don't regret it. I ended up with a fantastic guitar.